Yes, people, what is going on? Welcome to the Top 4 Podcast Extra Time. We're back again here with another video to talk all things Jack Grealish. And I'm joined, of course, by AD, Liverpool man. What's going on, AD?
Yeah, man, I love my ballers, man. Let's get into it. Let's diagnose the problem and then let's fix this wonderful, wonderful man. I'm ready, man. I'm
Yeah,
ready.
absolutely. I mean, look, Jack Grealish, the reason he's even the talk of the topic at the moment, look, he came into Manchester City, £100 million transfer fee, breaking transfer fee, raised a lot of eyebrows, raised a lot of question marks, but at the same time, a player like that man when he was at Aston Villa to go to Man City was something that everybody was so excited about, so excited to see him play under Pep Guardiola. He's been there three seasons. And the question, I guess, he's won the treble. But when I look at his record and everything else in terms of his City career, he's played 157 times for Manchester City. He's got 17 goals and he's got 23 assists. So when you look at it like that, he's won the treble, he's won the Champions League, he's won the FA Cup, he's won 2 Premier League titles. Overall, has his time at Man City been a success or a failure?
It's a great question. I think from a personal standpoint, you'd have to say for Jack Grealish himself, it's been an unequivocal success. This is a guy who, not too long ago was playing for Aston Villa in the Championship. And he was almost like maybe like 18, 19, 20. He was almost at a crossroads in his career where he was like doing like balloons on a beach in Greece or something. And it was like, well, lads, when you gonna get your act together? When you gonna get serious? When are you gonna turn this talent that we all know you have, this obvious talent, and make it come to fruition? Obviously, since then he's made the move to City, and as you sort of eloquently said before, he's a Champions League winner. He's won multiple league titles. He's won the FA Cup. So I think he's a star. He's a brand. He's and not only was he not only is he a treble winner, I think he played about 50 games that season. He was a big massive part of it. I was listening to a Manchester City podcast, and funny enough, Jack Grealish, he was being interviewed by Neda Manuha and another bloke, right? And I didn't actually realize how integral he was, but there was a period in April, right? Crunch time of the season,
Yeah.
hell or high water, and obviously, and he's reading out some of the games. I think you had Arsenal was in there, Liverpool was in there. There was like a double header with Bayern Munich. There was a FA Cup semi-final.
Yeah.
And then Jack Grealish turns around and says he was the only player that started all 9 of those games. And then you would have thought to yourself, what? Haaland, Edison, Diaz? No. So it's clear that, Pep sort of saw something in him, saw that he was a key figure in that triple winning side at such a crucial time as well. So from him, a personal perspective, he would obviously say it's been a success. But then when you look at the numbers, and when you look at the way that his Man City career is seemingly fizzling out, success maybe isn't, especially for the fee as well, 100 million quid. Success maybe isn't the word you'd best use to describe it.
Do you know, you bring up such a great point about that treble winning season. I didn't even deep until just now in this conversation. That treble winning season, he played 50 games in all competitions for Manchester City. So as you say, he was an integral part, right? And even at that point that you mentioned about those 9 games where he's the one that's ever present in that. So the question I'm thinking, and where did it go wrong? Where has it gone to the point? Because at this time of recording, Manchester City are in the FIFA Club World Cup, and Jack Grealish is not in the squad. He hasn't traveled to the States to do this tournament. What went wrong? Or where did it go wrong?
Dear, oh dear. I think
that's a lot of games he played. As you're mentioning, I mean, it's a lot of games he played in that 22-23 season. So I'm amazed personally.
I have a lot of games. I think part of my thinking is maybe he's maybe been a victim of the old adage of adapt or perish. When you start to, obviously, Jack Grealish, he's got his very sort of specific profile where he likes to take the ball from the second third. He likes to glide past players. He likes to hold the ball. I think there's been seasons where he's been the most sort of fouled player in the league.
Yeah.
And if you start to look at some of the attackers Pep has started to sign, and you look at Doku, you look at Savinho, you even look at, Uma Mamushi, they signed in January, sort of a lot quicker, a lot more sort of direct, And maybe in Pep's mind, he just thinks that, in this evolution of this Man City side, he wants to take it another way, and maybe Jack Grealish doesn't necessarily fill that sort of profile. But equally, I think we just got to call a spade a spade. I think just the output certainly just hasn't been good enough. This is the guy who's cost 100 million quid, and you're telling me he scored what 17 goals in what? Over 150 games. That's simply not good enough. So I think that there's a part of it where there's been a drop off. I think there was a period, up until, and it was like a random FA Cup game where he hadn't even scored a goal for well over a year. So there's definitely been a drop in performance from when he was, a key cog of that triple winning side. Played 50 games, crunch time. He was ever present, and then all of a sudden, that Jack Grealish seems to have disappeared.
I do wonder, like, did when they won the treble and they had that parade, and if there was a man who was half cut for about a week, a month, right? The guy was he was absolutely bladdered, right? And okay, look, you've won the treble, they've been out on the beers, they've been on the lash, whatever. But it seemed like it almost seemed like he went a bit further than everybody else. And I just wonder, like, there's been rumors in the press, in the media saying, like, look, some of the journalists that were there for the parade, they were there kind of like, reporting on the parade. And if anything, it looked like Grealish looked a lot worse than what we actually got to see out of it all. And I just wonder, even if you're such a top talent, even if you're somebody who's played so well and helped the team win the treble, whether Guardiola and his staff said this is not the mentality that I need at this club. This is not the kind of character, personality, whatever the case may be. Maybe because it's the season after that, he plays about 36 games in all competitions. This season, he plays 32 games in all competitions. So the drop off from 50 down to the 30s, you could argue, look, they didn't go as far in the Champions League, whatever. FA Cup, I think they went to the final of the FA Cup. And in fact, the final, he didn't come off the bench. City were a goal down, you know. So there's clearly something that's, I because in one respect, I definitely hear what you're saying in terms of, look, Guardiola's got a direction. The output from Grealish hasn't been good enough, and he's moving somewhere else. But when you're at the harem scarum stage of a match, when you're like, you need to throw the kitchen sink, it's throwing the kitchen sink means like you're not going with your ideal plan. You're just trying whatever. Now I'm just throwing everything at it. FA Cup final, he doesn't come on. He's playing far less games. When they went into the January window, just gone, spent 160 million quid after their bad season. Mamouche clearly has added to the side. Doku came in obviously as competition as well. They've now signed Ryan Shirky, and it's like,
yes, another one. Yeah, I forgot to mention him. Yeah,
yeah. You think, okay, this is getting a bit techie now. And he's not, and I think the final nail in the coffin, two nails. The first nail was that he didn't make the England squad for the Nations League. And Tuchel was very vocal. He said the guy has to play football. He needs to. I think he said something like he needs to. He kind of put the onus on Grealish directly, and was sort of like, Jack needs to go and demand to play football, in a sense of like saying to him, look, if you're sitting at Man City's bench, you're not coming to England. You're not coming to the England camp, and you better make something happen because the World Cup is next year. And if Jack Grealish was to miss the World Cup for England, that's a travesty. He's arguably one of the most talented players we've got in the country.
The country, yeah.
So if Jack Grealish misses an England squad in a World Cup, mate, something's gone very, very wrong. He's 29 years old. The summer looks like he's going to be moving, but this has got to be very, very. He's 29. He cannot mess this up. This transfer cannot. It's the last throw of the dice, really, unless he goes on loan somewhere. This is the last roll of the dice. And so I want to break down some of the teams that he could join over this summer. And the first one that comes to mind, let me throw this dartboard at you. Newcastle United. Can you picture Jack Grealish at Newcastle? Whether that's in, and by the way, first of all, where do you think his best position is? Just out of curiosity, because I've got a specific area that I want to play him in.
All right, perfect. I think for me personally, sort of in my mind, when I sort of think of the marauding, the adventurous, the creative, the socks are down by his ankle. Jack
Yeah,
Grealish, I think it's on that left wing. It's on the left wing, but he's given sort of creative license and creative freedom to just do what he wants. Really, that in
yeah.
my mind is the best Jack Grealish I've sort of seen. What would you say?
Yeah, I think it's between that left wing and that number 10. There's a third in that
Sweet
piece.
spot. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, there's a bit right there in the
yeah,
corner of
yeah,
the
yeah.
box, just that area there where I think he
Yeah,
is so dangerous, so
yeah,
bad. Like there was a story with him and Dean Smith at Villa where he was telling Dean like, I'm a number 10, like I want to be a number 10, like I'm number 10, and Dean was like, you're so much more electric on the left, but feel free to dip inside as and when you need to. And when I think of like his goal at Old Trafford for Villa, it was that moment where I was just like, this is just the perfect Jack Grealish goal. This is him in a nutshell. And if somebody could really unearth that situation, I honestly, if they can play him in that third, that little corridor between 10 and left wing, oh my God, I think he'll be. Because the left wing, the problem I have with left wing, it requires too much work in today's football. It requires
right.
too much of the tracking back nonsense and all of that kind of stuff. It's the woke 2025 football, right? And
Sure.
unfortunately, tracking back as a winger is not a bad thing. But if only they treated him as Liverpool treat Salah.
Yeah.
You're a Liverpool man. Correct me if I'm wrong. Salah on the right wing. I'm not seeing him hug Trent Alexander-Arnold at right
Oh,
back. I'm not
oh.
seeing it.
He'll do,
Yeah.
he'll do like one sprint every 3 games, and he's like, "Oh, he's working hard." But generally speaking, and I think this is the case for all your best players, right?
Mm,
He's in the area where he can affect the game most, and that's as
yeah.
close to the other goal. So, and I think Jack Grealish probably fits into that category as well in another team, another setup.
Honestly, this day and age of like when you've got players of that special quality, that's
Yeah,
stardust quality. You've got to take the reins off him. Like how
yeah.
I would love Wenger with this guy. Wenger would
Oh,
treat this guy just like what he did with Özil and
yeah,
Sanchez and people like that. It's the
yeah,
fact that he's gone to Pep Guardiola, who's like, and the thing is, Guardiola has a bad rap for this, right? He takes like these such talented, skillful players and makes them this, that, and the other, and that's not all the way true because a De Bruyne, for example, was electric
yeah.
for Manchester City, especially under Guardiola. There are players that played with a bit of freedom over there, so it's a bit too harsh to just go all one way. And he had Messi at Barcelona, for goodness sake. The rest was history there. So yeah, that's where and you look at Salah. Salah had how many goal contributions this season? He scored
Oh,
like
was it like 60? I think I don't.
it was a joke. It was an absolute joke. And I just genuinely think like if Guardiola could do that, then that would be brilliant. I mean, look, back to this topic at hand anyway. Newcastle United. What with that being said, in terms of the positioning and everything about him, and the kind of player that we kind of want to see, not be rigid, not be restricted into what he does. He has to stay in a specific area, this, that, and the other. We want to see him being his Aston Villa best, that flamboyant player, the playmaker, the eye-catching player. Newcastle, what are your thoughts?
You know what? It's because it's interesting what you sort of mentioned with Pep, how he's sort of got that bad rap of sort of being very. He's almost the killer of not necessarily creativity, but certainly flamboyance and flair and expression, right? Whereas
Yeah.
Jack would probably want to sort of come into like the sort of half spaces and express himself. Pep would probably eat. I mean, I'm gonna say it's pulling his hair out, but it's a pretty poor, pretty lazy joke, right? But Pep, you can see him absolutely giving players a bollocking. No, no, no,
Mm.
no, no, no. What are you doing? Stay here. Here's where you're meant to play. Here's where I want you to operate. And you can't argue. I mean, he's one of the most rated managers in the history of the game. Best in the world currently. But I do wonder with obviously Eddie Howe. I look at something like the work that your likes of your Anthony Gordons and your Joe Lintons and for, faulting for all of these limitations and whether or not you think he's a good player, or even not even think he's a Premier League player. I think that's a bit harsh, certainly. But even like your Jacob Murphys, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Not the most exciting, not the most glamorous, but he will put in a shift. And
100%.
I don't necessarily to say that Jack Grealish is a particularly lazy player per se, but will he be able to exert that physical, just that physical effort that Dan Eddie Howe would require? I'm not too sure. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, the more you spoke there, the more I'm thinking, do you know what? That Newcastle bunch is a hard-working 11, squad. That team, there's a part of me that's thinking, could Grealish get on board with it though? Like he sees the whole team, because Newcastle are so united, pun intended. They are so connected as a team. When you look at them, they look like gangsters. They're all thugs. You know what I mean? Ernest calls it bone thugs and harmony football. Like they are just a gang. And I just genuinely think like maybe if Grealish gets welcomed into that gang, we might get that enhanced level of Grealish where we don't lose the flair, we don't lose the silk, we don't lose any of that sort of creativity, but we also get a bit more effort in the sense of like he becomes like one of the dogs in that team. Because it's not to say Newcastle don't have a few, when I look at players like Tonali, for example, or even Gordon's got a better flair to him as well. Alexander Isak is pure, class.
Yeah, class.
I genuinely feel
you can afford one, innit? You can afford one.
Say again?
So you can afford one, can't you, innit?
You can afford one. You know what I'm saying? You can afford one. And I feel like he could really, because Newcastle need the players. They need the squad. They're in the Champions League next season. They're going to be playing 60 odd games. So you're going to need that rotation anyway, whether it's Murphy, Harvey Barnes, Gordon, and Grealish. That's just a good mix. And one of those, and I think Grealish could play in that middle three when you've got Joe Linton and Tonali, for example, or Guimaraes and Tonali, Guimaraes and Joe Linton, whoever. Like they could really make that work. It's just one of them ones where I do feel Grealish's off-ball antics does come into play. And if you send that boy to Newcastle,
oh my word, jolly up every other week.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Because
Newcastle's one of those places where it's a good night out. Do you know what I mean? So it's a difficult. I would love to see it, provided the question is, will he succeed at Newcastle? I don't know is the answer to that question.
Because based on talent, of course, why would Newcastle say no? But based on sort of application, and I think you made a good point about sort of rotation. Obviously, you got like your Harvey Barnes is in there. Part of me does wonder, when you thought of the best Jack Grealish, what was that? It was the undisputed champion of that left wing slot, if you want, whether it's sort of, El Ghazi, Trezeguet, Bertrand Trapp, piss off. Who even are you guys? Obviously you saw in the treble season, probably his best season for City, played 50 games, right? In crunch time he played all 9 games. So I do wonder if maybe that rotation aspect of it may be, you may not necessarily get the best out of Grealish, because I do think Grealish needs to feel like the man. And I think with the way Newcastle operate is no. There's no man here. Okay, we've got Isak. Isak is our man. The rest of us are subservient dogs. Our job is to battle, is to fight, is to harass, is to harry, and it's to feed. It's to feed Alexander. That's it. That's all we're doing. Right, Joe Linton is getting people in headlocks in the center circle. So I do wonder that sort of aspects. So this is again not to necessarily say that Grealish is necessarily lazy, but he would want to express himself and be more of a focal point in the side than he would maybe necessarily be in the well-drilled Newcastle system.
Agreed. You sold it to me there. I think, unfortunately, Grealish to Newcastle, are we yes or no? I think the answer is leaning more no than yes. What do you think?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of it all.
Yeah, I'll say it's a no. Unfortunately.
All right. So Newcastle's off the table. How about Tottenham Hotspur?
Oh.
Tottenham Hotspur have gone into the Champions League through the back door. Right, the biggest exit you can find.
They're doing a damn alleyway, for goodness sake.
Through the alleyway, yeah, exactly. Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League, another team in the Champions League, and they haven't got a player like Jack Grealish there. I feel like the only thing missing at Tottenham, there's many things missing. Sorry, one of the things missing at Tottenham Hotspur is that superstar player. Maddison thinks he's him, but it's not. Jack Grealish is I feel a different planet to James Maddison. Maddison is so inconsistent that he can't be leveled in the same conversation. But Grealish, I feel like Grealish gives you that threat, a bit like what Son used to do for Tottenham when he was younger, coming off that left, where when that ball came to him, the stadium would stand up because they knew something could happen. Even because it's Son, it's Kane, that dynamic, Dele Alli, that dynamic was just ruthless, relentless. I genuinely think this is almost perfect. For Jack Grealish, because I think because you know what you just said, Newcastle are a team, they don't do individuals. Tottenham Hotspur need that individual.
Yeah, they do.
What are your thoughts? What say you?
Yeah, because as we sort of explored in the previous video, Tottenham it's like a crash, right? They just got a bunch of 19-year-olds, and then we've got like a bunch of 19-year-olds, and then they've got Solanke. There's like no sort of in between, right? No sort of peak age players. Sort of willing. How old is Matisse Tell that they signed the other day? So I definitely think that Grealish improves them absolutely. It's got infinite star power. Like the shirts will fly. Especially in that lovely megastorm of those, the shirts will fly. Because I do remember sort of saying that I think that Spurs need to be in the market for a superstar. I think that you're in the Champions League now. You've got this beautiful stadium. You've got all these talented youngsters. You need to rubber stamp it with true, genuine quality. And I think I was going to say Wilshere, and I think Jack Grealish certainly possesses that quality. I'm a bit wary of it. Only because if I'm a Tottenham fan, and I understand, Grealish has got all of these obvious qualities, I'm thinking to myself, I'd want somebody who's almost sort of entering their prime, coming into their prime, where that's the blockbuster marquee signing. That's who's gonna be good for us now and then lead us into the future. I just think for what Tottenham seem to be doing, how much of Grealish are they going to get, if that makes any sense? Because I know it's almost a bit of a contradiction, because just the other day I was talking about, they need star power, they need superstars, but now I'm presented with a superstar and I'm a bit hesitant. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous, but I don't know. I just think if I'm a Tottenham fan, I'll be thinking of it as, don't get me wrong, quality player, but I'd much rather. Again, I don't know how realistic this is, but just for the sake of argument, and to give you an example of what I mean, I'd rather like a Rafael Leao, if that makes sense. Who, as I said, is sort of at that peak age, whereas with Grealish, he's almost, I don't know, like 29, 30, right? He's still in the peak of his power. But I almost feel like, he's had his £100 million move. He's won his league titles. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What's got me nervous about it is that if Tottenham fail in the season, it's not been great. Let's say Thomas Frank doesn't really get it going. Maybe Tottenham finish 8th or 9th in the league. It means Grealish hasn't been that great there. Yeah. And the problem is, it will look worse on Grealish than it will on Tottenham if Grealish doesn't succeed at Tottenham. Does that make sense?
Firstly, yeah.
And so it's on his career, it will be the final nail in the coffin, because it will be a thing of like, okay, now Grealish, like, you might as well just retire. And that's crazy, because he'll be 30, 31. Like the talk of Jack Grealish retiring at that age, where players are going up to 40s now. I'm seeing people playing 35, 36, 37. Cherby's playing in the Club World Cup. I'm seeing him playing again after playing a Champions League final. He's 37. Yeah. So
crying out loud.
Exactly. So if the thing that scares me, and it's a red flag that's flashing in my face, it's the fact that if Tottenham don't do well, because Tottenham need to finish in the top 6, I think, at minimum next season, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll be real. When I look at that squad, I just think it's full of dead wood, man. Dead players, like or undercooked. You
Undercooked,
know,
yeah, sounds good.
where Dominic Solanke I like, but again, he's not the man to lead your
Yeah,
star
he's
lineup.
not the man.
You know, Mateus Tell you brought up Kulusevski. Will he give me 15 games in a row? Who knows? Son is over 30. James Madison, less said about him, the better.
They're on their
Brendan
knees for a
Johnson.
superstar. They're on their knees for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Grealish, I think would lift that team, and I think he could get them a few more wins, and I think the crowd will love him. I think at home he'll be absolutely brilliant.
Adored, yeah.
And Thomas Frank, you know, it depends. Frank seems to be a kind of manager who adapts to the situation. Right. Nobody can really tell me who Thomas Frank's style is, because when he was in the championship with Brentford, apparently it was tiki-taka, passing, pressing, Jurgen Klopp kind of football. But then he gave it up in the Premier League. He said, I'm not here to play football with you, man. We know our level. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm here to change it up. And that's, you know, everybody that gets promoted to the Premier League, guys, go look at the Brentford book, because they took a leaf and they said, you know what, bruv? It worked in the Championship, but it's not going to work in the Premier League. We're going to get packed in.
Yeah.
And these guys were so good. They've been brilliant. They've had probably one shaky season where they finished like 16th, but they've, like you mentioned on the pod previously, they've lost player after player. They had injuries galore, and it's Brentford, for goodness sake. And they're teetering in mid-table, top 10 finishes and what? Phenomenal. So maybe Thomas Frank could, because he seems like a nurturing manager, and that's what Grealish I think needs. I don't think Grealish needs a disciplinarian. He needs somebody arm around the shoulder like Jack. Like, I used to watch you in the Championship when you was with Villa, killing me, you know, in against Brentford. Like, kind of get in his head in that way. And I feel like Grealish would lap that up, because he would take on, you know, the kind of manager he likes is that Dean Smith, that Thomas Frank. It's that kind of relationship type of. He thought he might have loved it with Guardiola, because that is too attractive to turn down. But he's been there, he's smelt the coffee, and it's like, random story. Yeah, I watch a lot of European like football analysis, like, you know, journalists and all that kind of stuff. They said the one thing that when Guardiola left Bayern Munich, the first thing that happened was, and I think Thomas Muller said it in the press or whatever, they were like, oh, finally we can relax. That was their first reaction.
Oh my God.
And bear in mind, Guardiola made that Bayern Munich team 10 times better than what it was. That Bayern Munich team was hard work. They were winning the league in January. They were hard work. They were so good. Such a shame they ain't got a Champions League medal in that era, because that's what taints Guardiola's career at Bayern, which I find ludicrous, because I've never seen a better team than Bayern Munich. Like, the best Bayern Munich, I've never seen a team better than that. I'm not even capping. I don't think I've seen a better team than that. Anyway, but the first reaction was, thank God. And when they brought in Ancelotti's like, hey, guys, you guys are the best. You know what I mean? You got to do what you do.
Yeah, just crack on. Just express yourself.
You know, so yeah, I'm hoping that if he was to go to Spurs, that it would be more so that kind of vibe. And I kind of get that vibe of the thing with Thomas Frank, though, I don't think he takes. If you take the piss, I don't think he takes it. I don't think he takes it. There's an interview he's done with Jake Humphries on the High Performance podcast, and he said there's no D heads in Brentford. That's the reason why it succeeds. And when he used that them kind of, you know, that kind of slur, I'm thinking, brah. So he's having none of that. And bear in mind, not that he has this perception, but, you know, like, if you were to think, when I look at some of the Brentford players, who do you think could give me some trouble over the last couple of years? He's had Morpie in that team. He's had Ivan Toney in that team. Not
probably, in fairness, probably those two. In fairness, like, if I'm about to name those two,
But look, he made them work. He made it succeed. So I don't know. Tottenham looks interesting. If you're a Tottenham fan, you'd be delighted, but it looks very interesting.
And also, you're selling me on the Thomas Frank point, because I think this is a guy who, you know, he's notorious for getting insane output from his forwards. Like, he creates situations that enables them to clap goals, to clap assists. You know, last season he got 3 forwards into double digits. I think Brentford scored the most goals at home last season. There was a period of like I'll say a month, maybe like 3 weeks, where, you know, they'll score in the first minute. There's something that he's doing. There's an instruction. There's a tactic wherein he knows how to get the best out of forwards, and might start to see his output. Grealish under Frank, maybe go back to those Aston Villa lockdown season where, you know, Grealish was like, holy cow, look at this guy. So whilst I was apathetic to the Grealish thing, and I thought, while Spurs do need a superstar, I don't necessarily think they need a superstar on his trajectory. You've maybe like you're making me reconsider it now with the Thomas Frank point, because
It's
Thomas Frank might actually be able to get better tune out of this guy.
I genuinely think he can. I think overall, I'm so 50-50 on this one. This is a difficult
Yeah.
one. This is a very difficult one for me because I could see Tottenham not having a great season. So therefore, that project fails. And therefore, his career looks worse. And is it worth the risk? I don't think so.
No, but then wouldn't you say that, what Grealish needs is for the weight of a club, the weight of a project to be put on his shoulders. And as you're saying, you can see Tottenham's season going one way. Maybe if you add Grealish's quality, creativity, flair, it can maybe tip the other way. Maybe he can actually tip that balance, no?
Yeah, he probably can, mate. Honestly, you will throw 100 darts at the board, 50 will go on, 50 will go off. I genuinely cannot split it. I'm splitting hairs with this one. I genuinely don't know.
I'll tell you what, should we park this one? Let's sort of go through the other options. We'll park Tottenham. Tottenham may be the destination, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay,
we'll see.
So I don't know if you've been seeing in the news lately. Everton have had a big interest in Jack Grealish, and it came out of the blue. But your boy Fabrizio Romano,
no pun intended,
has literally said, that there's interest from the Everton camp. And Everton, I think, are losing Calvert-Lewin. Apparently, there's like a spending spree happening at Everton at some point this season,
right?
Heading into their new ground and everything like that. David Moyes, Jack Grealish, Everton. What say you?
I can see. You know what? It's funny that you mentioned spending spree, because when you put Jack Grealish and Everton in the same sentence, the first thought that went into my mind: can they afford him?
Can they afford him?
Can they afford him? That was genuinely the first sort of question that went into my mind, because you've got to be on what, at least 250. Because you went for 100 million quid, maybe even be unfair. Anyway, but that's a separate debate. I'm sure City are gonna wherever he goes, City will put up some money, some contribution towards that. But Everton, I think Grealish needs to feel like the man. He needs to feel loved. Those Everton fans will shower him with love and an abundance of love. I mean, just look at the cult heroes, maybe even legends. You like likes of your Richarlisons, who not necessarily the greatest of players, but they love that boy. And I think Grealish does need to go somewhere where he is loved. I actually think that under David Moyes, Everton were one of the form teams. So whilst my perception of Everton is sort of a team fighting for relegation, actually, hang on a minute, no. If they actually sort of keep Moyes, that's one, and back him with players like Jack Grealish, maybe they might actually challenge for Europe, potentially, maybe. I don't know. Lofty ambition, sure, but Jack Grealish is a lofty, ambitious target for a team that was fighting relegation not too long ago to go for a treble winner. You know what I'm saying? So, interesting one. Yeah. What are you saying?
Yeah, only because Fabrizio had talked about it did Everton even come to my mind, because I don't associate Everton, Jack Grealish. I don't associate that, because you almost think like if Everton will be going in overdraft, getting in Jack Grealish. And so that's the only signing of the summer for Everton. Is that a good signing for Everton long term? I don't know, because Grealish just walks into a pile of garbage, really. I mean, I like it. Yeah. I like Ndiaye. I think Ndiaye is brilliant. I'm struggling after that. And he's their Grealish at the moment, right? Where Everton have grinded results. But the question I have to ask myself is, where do I think Everton will finish next season? What is their target? What's their aim? If their aim is top half, then Grealish could be an interesting conversation. But if their target is to stay in the league or be in that bracket of like 10th to 15th, it's pointless. It doesn't work. And David Moyes, hard Scotsman. I don't see him taking much, but I do see him. Like, he had Rooney once upon a time. In fact, twice he had Rooney. 3 times, I think twice he had Rooney. Where you think, because I'm just remembering Rooney going back to Everton, but he wasn't there. But when I look at what David Moyes has had, You know, he's had a Rooney at Everton. He's had a Rooney at Man United. Okay, Man United wasn't necessarily a success. When I look at West Ham, he's had a few players that have got a bit of creativity about them, don't really have much ego about them. He's done very well with West Ham.
Arnautovic was an interesting one, actually.
Say again?
He made Arnautovic look really, really good for a period. He was hot, like the hottest I've ever seen him.
And think about that. Like Arnautovic and Moyes, I would have thought would clash big time.
Yeah.
So
You would have.
The fact he got a tune out of that West Ham team, a tune out of Arnautovic. He won European silverware with West Ham. So I can see him doing that in his own way. If Moyes wants Grealish, I'm intrigued. I'm there sitting there. I'm rubbing my hands to see, this could be interesting. If it's just a case of like the Everton hierarchy, as they seem to do, just buy their own players and just not feed the manager what he actually wants, then it's a disaster waiting to happen and financial ruin again. So yeah, I'm leaning more no, but I want to see if David Moyes comes out and says I'm interested in Jack. My eyes are open, my ears are open. Do you get what I'm saying?
And do you know what? I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad that David Moyes at least is sort of back in this conversation, because I remember watching an interview with David Moyes last summer. I think it was with Simon Jordan actually. And in the back of my, I think he sort of mentioned like he's in his 16s now, and I sort of thought, I hope that's not it, you know. I hope that's not it. I hope he can sort of get one more stab at it in the Premier League at least, you know. And obviously, you know, do move back to Everton, and I actually do love the fact that almost like a growing endorsement of Jack Grealish is that, well, if David Moyes wants you, let's actually think about this. Like there's actually more to this, you know, because we see like it's so atypical from our perception of David Moyes. Yeah. It must be a masterstroke. It must be something that he wants to add to the squad. If David Moyes wants to add it to his squad, it's necessary and it must be done.
Yeah. He's the best British manager since Sir Alex. And he does not get that respect, or not. He doesn't get any of that adoration at all. And I find it a travesty.
No, but I think in fairness, I think that United stint stained him, and then he didn't get on well at Sociedad, and then I think he went down with Sunderland, didn't he? So there was like a I don't even know. Let's just call it like a 5-year spell. Yeah, a 3-5-year spell where it just didn't work, and then it almost undone the 10 years before they kind of Everton. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and all he's done is rebuild. Do you know what?
Yeah, and now West Ham is. But bear in mind, West Ham sacked him. You know,
unbelievable. And the second time they mutual consent whereby they weren't offering him a new deal. And look where West Ham are now. You know,
exactly. You know, nail on the head. You know, when Moyes does stuff, it's like, oh, it's only 10th. It's only Europa League. It's only a Conference League. But then you take him out, and what? You're what, 16th in the league? I think they finished off.
What, Everton last season?
No. West Ham.
Oh, West Ham. Yeah, West Ham had a shocker.
Like 16th, I think. Yeah. I think it was United 15, West Ham 16, and obviously Spurs 17. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. West Ham finished 14th, mate.
Oh, the 14th. Oh, must be Wolves.
Everton finished 13th though. Ended the season with 3 wins on the bounce, beating Newcastle away, Southampton at home, and beating Fulham away. David Moyes is the man.
He's the man. He's the man.
Right. So Everton, yay or nay?
Oh God, I don't want to sit on the fence. Man. I tell you what we should do is let's sort of go through them. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's a straight nay, just bin it. And then let's like put a question mark on the ones that were cool. Sort of between a throw in, and then at the end we can. So I'll definitely question mark it. I think it's the David Moyes effect really, and this is more so. It's not necessarily anything to do with Everton per se. Yeah. I think the fan base does play a big part of it, because I think they'll love that boy. Yeah. But it's the David Moyes effect, you know. Yeah, it's the David Moyes effect. I think David Moyes can get a tune out of him, and he'll be reminiscent of the Villa days again.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Let's go away from the Premier League for a stint, because I don't know if you've seen this rumor that's gone round.
Okay.
Napoli, Antonio Conte and Napoli.
Flipping hell.
Now, this is a straight nay for me, because I think the last thing I don't think Grealish can handle abroad. Number one. I don't think he can handle it abroad. That's my
Why?
first problem. He's just not disciplined enough, man. Like, and it's okay. That's okay. That's not a slight on his character or nothing. He's just not disciplined enough. I can't see him going abroad. Let's say he goes to Italy. He ain't learning no Italian. And if you know how
Probably he barely knows English.
he barely knows English, yeah. I mean, and the thuggish ruggish from the Italian fans, if you slack, they'll be at your house. The same goes with the French. They will turn up to your door.
Bro.
Germany, I just don't know if he's got it. I've not seen a lot of successful product except obviously Sancho and Bellingham. But I remember like Smith Rowe going there on loan. I remember Reece Nelson more closely. Yeah. Was it Ollie Burke from Celtic went out there?
Oh yeah, when he went Leipzig, yeah.
And not real success stories coming out of that.
No.
I just don't. Maybe if he went to Bayern Munich or something like that, and he sat there with like Harry Kane, for example,
that would have been interesting to me actually.
That's tasty. That's very tasty.
Yeah, that'd have been really tasty. It's a shame they're not in for him.
Yeah, that's a shame. But
that probably would have been a pick, to be fair.
I think Bayern Munich is actually a great pick.
Yeah.
We just throw that in there. I think we might have to add Bayern to that list. But yeah, Conte. I'm so sorry, Conte. He will kill that boy. He will kill him, and he'll put him on the bench. He'll put him in the reserves, and he will sit in those reserves till Conte leaves.
Oh.
The thing that helps him there, though, is that what's his name? Scott McTominay's there. Billy Gilmore's there. That's a big one. That's a big one.
There we go.
What are your thoughts?
I think it's interesting that you mentioned Billy Gilmore. I think in particular it's interesting that you mentioned sort of Scott McTominay. This is a guy who was sort of much maligned at Man United for years. Local lads come through the academy, all of this sort of stuff. Criticized for his lack of ability on the ball, let's say. And they're chanting his name. They absolutely love him. He's got a Billy Ray Cyrus mullet. He's cracking on. And then obviously when you look at how football mad sort of that club is, obviously you look at how the way they sort of eulogize Diego Maradona. Now I'm not gonna dare put Jack Grealish in the same breath as Diego Maradona, but I do think he does have that sort of similar maverick, legendary, likable appeal that I do think that Napoli crowd can really, really, really buy into, and I think so that's sort of off the bat. I think they'll love that boy. I can even imagine like the way the announcer will chant his name, and I think when you sort of look at the sort of the temper of the league as well, I think actually maybe, and how you're sort of worried about how Grealish will get on, sort of his antics and stuff.
Yeah.
What? Is there a world where the opposite can happen, wherein he adapts, he kind of comes of age, he kind of grows up, and he really sort of gets stuck into it, and really, really takes it on? Because do you remember that period where he was the Aston Villa captain, right, in the league under Dean Smith? Like, no, in a minute, Jack Grealish, he's a man, he's a leader. So it's not like he's been an outlaw for his entire career.
Sure.
Maybe he just needs a change of scenery, and he needs to feel that love to really feel motivated, and to really, really kick on, and to really, go for it. And Napoli, obviously, league champions, so obviously going to be in the Champions League. They're probably going to be competing for the league again. I guess if they want Jack Grealish, you suggest that they thought so internally as well. So actually, maybe that could actually be a move wherein he rolls up his sleeve and says, "Look, I'm going to be here for the next 3-4 years. Let me give him my all. Let me win like what I've done in England. Let me win a league in Italy."
Yeah, the more you're painting that picture, the more I want to believe that picture. I really do. What is interesting is Napoli, when they lost Kvaratskhelia in January, they were rumored with people like Garnacho and Rashford. And I thought, hang on a minute. I'm like, is that a Conte thing, or is that a De Laurentiis thing, who's like the chairman and director?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if they could go for people like Garnacho and Rashford,
Mm.
I'm thinking, hang on a minute, Grealish is not a bad idea. And if you, like you say, if Grealish's application is Conte, I'm gonna die for this team. Oh
Yeah,
my god!
yeah.
Guys, get your binoculars on because it's gonna be phenomenal scenes in Napoli. It's just, do I believe Grealish? Like, has this moment, you know, those wake up calls, basically?
Yeah,
Is this,
yeah.
does Grealish see this as a wake up call? Does he see this as a thing of like, do you know what? And even if he just focuses on England and the World Cup, like I'll do wherever it takes, wherever I go for England in the World Cup next year.
Yeah.
You know,
I
man,
don't.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, because obviously I don't know what Grealish's ambitions and aspirations are, but I'd like to hope he'd want to go to a World Cup, and I'd like to hope that the because in the other with the other clubs that we've mentioned,
Yeah,
realistically, there's an outside chance, I suppose, but
there is.
that ability to win the league isn't necessarily there. Whereas at Napoli, bro, we're here. Like Serie A, let's go get it. You know, go and be a league winner in two different leagues. And it's funny. It's funny that you sort of mentioned Kvaratskhelia because I actually think that Kvaratskhelia and Jack Grealish have a lot of the same sort of qualities.
Yeah.
Wherein they're not necessarily the quickest of wingers, but you know they're incredible dribblers. I'd almost put Iwobi.
Hmm.
So if you're like doing evolution, right?
Yeah.
You say you start off at Kvaratskhelia, you get to Iwobi at the halfway point, and then Grealish comes out on the other side. He's like a hybrid of those two, right?
Yeah.
And I love the same qualities Kvaratskhelia has. You know, sort of incredible ball progression. You know, he takes the ball into the box,
Yeah.
wins a lot of fouls. He's hard to tackle. And then I'm gonna throw a red herring into the I'm not even a red herring. I want to throw an eagle into the cage, right?
Ooh.
We've also, they're also linked with my guy, Mr. Darwin Nunes,
Ooh.
and and obviously they won the league last year, but I do see parallels to when they won the league a couple of years ago. If you have, let's say, instead of Kvaratskhelia, we've got Grealish, who
Yeah.
come across sort of very similar, and then instead of Victor Osimhen, we've got Darwin Nunes. Again, it's insane physicality. Will give the defenders, trouble. He'll get a high sort of shot volume as well. And I do hope in another environment the goals will come for Darwin Nunes as well. So do you think maybe that if those two can in essence replace Kvaratskhelia, if obviously Grealish and Nunes can replace Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen, do you think that might be part of the thinking? Because I think profile wise, those two groups of players profile quite similarly, no?
I think they will improve Napoli, those two players. And I think if they did join the camp and Antonio is up for it again and Conte's on it, mate,
Yeah.
you could look at them winning the league. Because actually, do you know what? In Italy,
Yeah.
they're the best prepared team for next season, bro.
Oh, you reckon? What was you see that?
News flash: Napoli will win the league next year because Inter Milan are cooked.
Yeah.
Cooked. Put a fork in
Yeah.
it. The steak is done.
Yeah.
AC Milan are all over the place. They're not ready. They're out of Europe. They've just signed Allegri back. So make of that what you will.
Los Rendes.
Yeah, Los Randes, he's gone. If we're talking Rafael, I'm sure he will be going somewhere. Then Juventus are not serious with Igor Tudor as their manager, and it's just not a serious. It's there, but it's not challenging for the title.
Yeah.
And Roma have just signed Gasperini. Atalanta have lost Gasperini, which is the manager who's been there for ages, who's done incredible work. Atalanta. So Atalanta will get hit, will have a little knock. They might bounce back, but again, title challengers, not really. Really, I mean, and then Sarri's back at Lazio, which is sensational.
15th time.
Sensational.
Have you seen his CV? Flipping hell, man.
Different.
So to talk about a job hopper, but anyways.
Exactly. So yeah, Napoli are best place to win the league next year.
And also on the Conte point, right? Conte isn't a slave owner. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not.
he's a disciplinarian, and I think Antonio Conte admires quality as well. And I think he can work with quality, like what we've seen with Lukaku. You know, probably the best Lukaku we've seen has been under Antonio Conte, and that's a player who has been lambasted for his off the field antics in terms of, you know, 1 second he's a rapper, the next second, you know, he's maybe put on what 7.5 kilos that he shouldn't have. And when you see him with Conte, he's a lean, mean, ass kicking machine. 20 league goals, thank you very much. So maybe again, you know, whilst, you know, I've sort of my whole time on this episode, I've been saying, oh, Grealish needs a hug, Grealish needs an arm around him, Grealish needs love. Maybe he needs a headlock. No,
Absolutely.
maybe he needs to say, "What? You know, I'm gonna watch you like a hawk. You're my main man. If we want to do anything this season, it's gonna be because of you." No. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much you'll agree to this. No alcohol, none, nothing. And and Grealish might be to and fro in, but then when you see Grealish playing the football of his life, he'll give Conte the biggest hug after. You know what I mean? So, you know, maybe that could work. Actually, maybe it could.
Honestly, you never know, man. Where are we putting this? Is this a question mark category again?
It's I think just for the sake of video, it's still a question mark, but I'm quite bullish about this one. I'll be real, but it's still a question mark. But yeah, I'm quite hopeful about this one actually. The more I think about it, maybe a change of environment might be best for him, maybe potentially. But we'll see. We'll see when we weigh it all up.
Right. Finally, or let's say the last couple, very quickly.
Right.
What about Aston Villa? And let me paint you this picture. Marco Asensio came on loan. Rashford came on loan. They've gone back to their respective clubs. I don't think Villa are signing them. Villa are out of the Champions League. Unfortunately, they didn't make it this season.
Yeah.
I mean, can lightning strike twice?
I mean, what's that old adage they say in football is to never go back, right?
Never go back.
And I do think in terms of ambition as well. Is it the most ambitious move Grealish can make going back to Aston Villa? Well, some may say, well, yeah, no, he's already been there. However, you may also argue that, well, he's got a chance to win the European Cup with Aston Villa. I'm sure that would be quite a tantalising prospect for him, right? Because as much as he left Aston Villa, he left to go win major honours. You know, Villa in a position where they can sort of achieve major honours as well. So, whilst I'm opposed to it, just for the fact that I just think it's a bit boring to go back. That's ultimately the place where where he's played the best football of his career, isn't it?
I think the thing you got to remind yourself with as well, Unai Emery with such players, they get output. Emery I witnessed this firsthand with Aubameyang and Lacazette. I've never seen such output from them two in all my life. That 2018-19 season was a joke. And Ozil was there as well. In terms of output goals, the amount of goals we were scoring, he will get the output. I think this is a guaranteed success. 2 reasons. Because this is a 10 times better Aston Villa than what he left.
Yeah.
He's going into, and you mentioned the competition. If he's in the Europa League or whatever, wherever they've landed, it is Europa League, isn't it? It's not conference.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, so
I believe it's Europa League. Yeah.
So it's Europa League. I think they're strong contenders to win that because it's Emery's trophy. Aston Villa is a solid side. Yeah. Grealish had a bit of Grealish in that mix. Oh my god!
We're cooking.
And the thing is, it's a LeBron James thing. He goes back to the home to collect a chip. And he brings that Europa League with him. He says, "Guys, I've come back to do what I had to do. I went to Miami for a bit, got my NBA championships. I've got my treble with Man City. I'm now arriving back. I'm about to give you European success."
I'm bearing in mind, obviously, it's going to be a multi-year deal, isn't it? So I'm sure these men will think, right, look, Europa League's on the table. Let's win the Europa League, and then let me fulfill my boyhood dream the next year and actually play in the Champions League with Aston Villa. Let's just say hypothetically, worst case scenario, they don't necessarily get it through the league, but they get it through the Europa League as well. So it's it's actually.
I could see a League Cup or an FA Cup victory for Villa next season. Like I could see that easily because they're one of the strongest teams in England. So you add Grealish in that. Oh my god!
Yeah.
guys, I'm seeing stars, and I'm only saying this because of two reasons. It's a
Yeah.
much better Aston Villa side, a team that can go toe to toe with teams in Europe, and it's got Unai Emery at the friggin' helm. If you mix that, blend that, oh my god. I'm so sorry. If this was a Gerrard Villa or it was maybe a Dean Henderson Villa again, Dean Smith Villa. I'm not necessarily. I'm with you. I'm like, never go back to your old club. Leave it, slough it. This is not that. This Aston Villa is a new football club, in my opinion. It's a new team altogether. So he's not joining the Villa of old. He's joining a brand new team. Oh, mate, I'm so sorry. Tantalize us.
Absolutely.
Emery will get output out of that guy. He will get output. Ollie Watkins up front, if he still stays. But then you've got your Tielemans, Onana's in there. You got Kamara. Mate, it's good stuff. It's good stuff, and I can see because they've lost Asensio and they've lost Rashford. Villa are going to spend, and they've lost Duran. They're going to spend money.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
I know they can't, and they probably can't even afford money right now. Maybe get him on loan, whatever. But get that man in there, mate.
Yeah, no other option to buy. I think would probably be up there, Alex. Because obviously, I was thinking, lack of Champions League might hinder the deal, but as you said, learn to buy. You're in the Europa League, and then if you could get them to the Champions League the next year. I don't want to say it pays for itself because I'm sure the package would be quite a lot, but you know what I mean. I'm sure they'll full satisfaction from it at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, exactly. So, yay or nay? I'm all the way in.
Oh my gosh,
I'm AEW, mate.
You saw me because I was really really apathetic to it. Okay, so why don't we sort of go through quickly go through the 5 teams we've sort of mentioned? Or did you have any?
So the only thing I was going to say actually was just, what if he fights and stays at Manchester City? Is there a world where this happens? Is there a world where he says, "Do you know what, Guardiola? Right? I see what you've done to me in that Club World Cup. You left me out the squad. Watch me this preseason. I'm gonna train my backside off, and before November, before October, you're gonna have no choice but to put me in that squad, in that 11." Because you're going to see another Jack Grealish that you've never seen before. Because Jack Grealish, the teams we've mentioned, if in case we haven't realized this or acknowledged this, like it goes down from here. Where he is right now, it goes downhill. We're not linking him with Real Madrid, Barcelona. Bayern Munich was a very interesting take, though. I think Bayern Munich, there's a conversation to be had. Everything else has been downhill. So maybe he says, "Do you know what? I need to stay at the pinnacle. I need to stay at the top spot here." All right, Pep, what will it take? What's it going to take? I don't care that you sign Doku. I don't care that you sign Marmoush. I don't care that you sign Shirky. What is it going to take for me to put them lot on the bench? If he really, because we're saying, maybe he changes when he goes to Napoli or when he's at Spurs or when he's, well, hang on a minute. Well, what if he changes at Manchester City?
I mean, so the question I'd ask is, why hasn't he changed for the past sort of 18 months? Where he's been horrible, if we're being completely honest. Also, I just think like Grealish almost feels like a 1995 Shawn Michaels. It feels like he's lost his smile, he's lost his hunger, he's lost his happiness and love for the game. And just from a financial perspective as well. If you're £100 million, if you're on 150 plus K a week, realistically, you're going to be starting. And if I've got Mamouche, Savinho, Doku, Shirky, sort of vying for the same slots you're vying for, I mean, what's there to fight for, really, bro? You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you think? Because not to be a pessimist, but it just feels like, if I'm Jack Grealish, I'm looking at it from a player perspective. I've done everything I needed to do at Man City. He's even got a Club World Cup, right?
Good question. Did they win it? I have no idea. Did they win it?
Well, exactly. We never know.
I think I've seen the badge in the middle. I think they have done it. I think they have won it. I'm sure they had a badge in the middle.
So it's almost like, and this is for someone whose hunger and motivation gets questioned a lot.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily think you'll have that hunger, that motivation to prove Pep Guardiola wrong. He's done what he needed to do. He's won his medals, and I do think for Jack Grealish, whether I can make two Premier Leagues into three, whilst it's nice and whilst it's an achievement, I don't necessarily think that gives him that deep-seated, burning desire, drive, motivation
Yeah.
to kick on again. I do think it does need to be in a new environment, or he could potentially, or a different environment, and I can put Aston Villa into that mix as well.
Yeah, I think you make some banging points there. Why now? You know, is the question. Why now? The only thing I could think of is just the fact that everything's come to a head. You know, the fact that Man City had a poor season by their standards this season, the fact that they signed quite a lot of players, it's like, okay, this is the last resort now. This is my final chance. That's the only thing that I think maybe might kick the motivation. But then there's another point that you brought up there where I'm thinking, I never actually looked at it like this. Grealish has done it all at Man City. He might just not want to be there anymore. Be like, you know what, I'm this, man. Like, I don't want all that tedious, tiresome football training and this, that. Like, I want to have a laugh with my mates. I want to play football with a bit of, with no care in the world. You know what I mean? There are those players that want that, where it's like, don't make this a chore and a job for me. Let this be a passion for me.
And that burnout and fatigue is not only natural to Grealish. I mean, you mentioned it with the Bayern Munich players, where again, you know, under Pep, they played the best football of their lives, but even them after 2 years said, "Oh, bloody hell, man! Let's get Uncle Carlo." You know what I mean? And I think similar for Grealish. Maybe Grealish has just had that fatigue where it's like, "Oh, bro, I just can't do this anymore." And also, what, he's 29, 30, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd wanna, you know, he doesn't want to play in this regimented, you know, I can't, you know, if I haven't looked forward, Pep's barking at me. I'm sure he'd wanna see out his career playing football. You know, he strikes me as and not really he strikes me, just the way he plays, he's a baller. He wants to play football. He wants to make stuff happen. He wants to express himself. And I think he'd want to express himself the best way he can for the last, you know, 3, 4, 5, 7 years of his career. I don't know when he's going to play to, you know?
Yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. And the very fact that he's out of the Club World Cup squad indicates to me they're trying to sell him this summer. So it's probably right there low on the list. So with that said, let's close this up. Ranking these teams. I think Manchester City probably is 5th in that list,
would be.
or 6th rather. Who are you including? Is it?
No, City will. You know, City is the 6th team in it because we've done 5 already.
Right. Okay. So 6th place, Manchester City. I think it's fair to say. 5th place, I think it's fair to say we agree Newcastle. We just don't think it would fit. It just won't work.
Yeah.
So now here's where it gets a bit techie. Whoa, 4th maybe Everton.
Okay, I'll put Everton above Villa, below Villa.
Yeah. So the 3 that are left here, we've got Aston Villa, we've got Tottenham Hotspur, and we've got Napoli. So we've got to try and make an order out of that. So 6th place is Manchester City, 5th place is Newcastle United. I think for Everton, I think is 4th because of what we've got in this list. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. Bang on. I agree with that.
So where do we? So who goes 3rd in this list? A part of me says Napoli, just because of financial reasons.
Financial reasons. Talk to me.
Well, Italy, you got to remember the Premier League is the juggernaut in terms of financial status.
Yeah,
the Premier League can spend anything and everything that it wants. If you look at the transfer windows, AD, European leagues take the piss out of the Premier League because they are selling guys at 40, 50, 60, 100 million, 120, 130. Like they are selling, like Florian Wirtz, we believe is going to be joining your beloved Liverpool on a fee of 130 million quid. I'm seeing Sesko being quoted in the 80s and the 90s where he's not even been the top goal scorer in the Bundesliga.
He's never scored 20 Bundesliga goals, has he?
So that's the thing. When Chelsea went to get Enzo Fernandez, they said, yes, you can have him for 100 million quid. Benfica got how many out of Liverpool for Darwin Núñez?
For 85 million, I think it is all in.
Atalanta got 70 million out of Manchester United for Højlund. My point is this.
Yeah.
The European leagues look at the Premier League and it's a cash cow. It's just udder for these men. They're just uddering for these men. So now in reverse, where Napoli have to now try to attract a Grealish, because if you look at these other leagues, all these players that become superstars at respective clubs, like your Kvaratskhelia, like your you name any top superstar players elsewhere around the globe, they were not paying not even 10 million euros for these players.
Yeah, just finding
them at 60 and 70 million. So Napoli ain't spending anything over 40 million quid for Jack Grealish.
Okay. Yeah, because that's sort of what they're looking to do with the Garnacho thing. Okay, do you think there's a world where wheeling and dealing and subsidizing wages rather, is there a world where Napoli can configure a deal palatable enough for City to accept, and obviously for Grealish to go over as well?
I think they do, but because of my knowledge on Serie A, De Laurentiis is not a gambler.
Right.
Napoli have been in the mire before. They've been in the black, they've literally they've been in the dark times.
Pre-Lavezzi in that.
You know what I'm saying? They've had loans coming out of their ears. The man does not do risks.
Yeah.
So in that sense, wheeling and dealing can occur, but if the risk is high, he's not doing it. He's pulling the plug. And that's where him and Conte will do this. That's where him and Conte will do that.
Yeah. It's funny because, bro, the romantic in me, I can't lie. I actually think Napoli might have been my number one because.
Oh, lovely. That would have been me. That would have been me. I can't lie.
I just find that it's exciting, it's new, it's a challenge. I think he can test himself in a new league, and I think ultimately he'll be competing for a league. I'm talking about and I suppose this is where I suppose it'll come into the ranking wherein is winning a league in Italy. Does that mean more to him than maybe winning a league in? Winning a Europa League and a Carabao Cup with Villa? What would mean more to him? I'd probably say winning it with Villa.
I'm intrigued to know how Tuchel look at it. If Jack Grealish went to Napoli, won the league.
Oh yeah,
he's got to go to the squad, isn't he? He's got to go.
You win, of course you're in. Yeah, you win.
The thing is, Villa has more eyeballs on screen here in this country than Napoli did.
Yeah,
it's techie, bro. It's techie because we look at Villa, Tottenham, Napoli. It's such a horrible conundrum to try and separate.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. What about Villa being third?
For me, I think Tottenham would be third. Of those three teams.
Okay. I can see that. I can see that Grealish is thinking, I don't need to be in the Premier League if I leave Man City. I can see that. And say, do you know what? If I'm going to go be in the Premier League, my only love will be Aston Villa.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So I could see that Tottenham being third. I could see your third. Because
it's either Villa or the ability to win. But what am I just doing, rocking up, kicking ball at Spurs?
Yeah.
I don't really love it. Because obviously we bang on about the motivation aspect to it as well. How hungry and how motivated would he actually be at Tottenham? How much would he love it? I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that either. Okay, so Tottenham Hotspur go third.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's head to head between Napoli and return to Villa.
Yeah.
I honestly see if I had to see which one I think would happen more likely, the Villa one happens more likely to me. Just because with Napoli, it is not a straightforward situation to get that deal over the line. There's so many hurdles that take place, and also Villa is set up to be like next on the agenda in terms of like we don't even talk about the big six anymore. Like it's not even a thing because
Yeah.
people like Villa and your Villas of this world,
Newcastle,
Newcastle, they're just
the shot to
breaking this
party.
barrier. They're breaking
Yeah,
this barrier.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm intrigued, man. I'm intrigued. Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
if we're talking finances, would you say that obviously Villa not making it to the Champions League, that's sort of dwindled and maybe even dwarfed their financial capacity and power and flex as well, or might because
I'm
they,
cheating.
because remember when they'll give Everton a young star and then they'll buy a young star from Everton and it's this weird sort of stuff like that, no?
Yeah, and the
It
reason I'm
was a
saying
new
it,
topic that they signed, but yeah, go on.
yeah, no, the thing I'm thinking with Villa is it will happen, but on loan.
Okay.
I think Villa would be on loan.
Mm,
And I think both parties will take that. It doesn't break the bank financially too much. Share
right.
wages, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Then it might be a mandatory transfer the year after
Obligation,
because
obligation to buy. Yeah.
Villa's books financially are cooked.
Cooked bloods. Yeah.
So that's the situation we're in. But Napoli is more harder to get through because I think they're gonna be fighting till the transfer deadline day.
Yeah.
And Conte is gonna blow his top when he doesn't get Grealish in the end.
He's never happy. Man, I've never seen him happy after the first season, at least. Oh gosh.
So talk to me. Is it Napoli or is it Villa? Who's your number one? Who do you realistically see?
I know you're saying all these value players, but I can just see him tearing it up in Serie A, man. I
Oh,
can just
certainly, definitely.
yeah.
All right. So do we want that fairy tale then? We want that fairy tale, yeah.
But then again, you can say Villa. You can say ending his career at Villa is a fairy tale as well. Okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm okay. I'll yield. Let's go. Napoli 2, Villa 1.
Wow. Who would have thought at the end of this conversation, debating this sort of stuff, that Jack Grealish is number one probably proposition where he might succeed the most?
Bro, I can't. No, he's got a league on the no. He's got a league on the line though. Serie A.
Am I changing it? Are we doing a 90th minute equalizer? Is that what we're doing?
No, let's go.
No,
Man,
I'm
let's go.
happy. I'll be honest with you. I'm happy to yield, because I want to see Grealish at Napoli. Screw it.
Okay,
That's what we're doing.
What would be your reason for wanting to see him at Villa?
Oh, at Villa, because it's the recipe, bro. It's realistic, and it's the fact that it's just when you look at the design, it's gonna cook. Them man there are gonna mix and blend Emery with Grealish because he needs that winner, that difference maker, and I don't think Villa have that yet. And so when you get a Grealish in there, all of a sudden he's the best player in their team.
Of course.
Bizarrely. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? He puts that strap back on. What? Oh,
yeah.
From last time I checked, Emi Buendia's gone, right?
Yeah, they were doing 20 million for a minute.
So if he's gone, that number 10 is ready for.
Bro, that's a shame. I love Buendia at Norwich, man. I think he done his ACL. I think the move to Villa just wasn't a success, and then he done his ACL, and he's just been cooked ever since. But he was so creative, man. It's a shame.
He was so good.
Arsenal wanted him for a bit, no?
Yeah, we did. So what's the final one?
Well, I don't know if this is too. I don't know if my mind is going too creative. But should we do a thing where we do a pyramid of sorts? Yeah. We can do what's it? I think what we said: City, Newcastle, Everton, Spurs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then should we leave the Villa Napoli bit to the audience?
Oh, we're gonna give it to the audience, yeah.
You decide because we
can't decide.
Wow.
Yeah, we leave it to the audience. Comment in the comment section down below, and smash like on the video, obviously. But comment down Villa or Napoli or anybody else. Because I'll be honest with you, AD. that Bayern Munich spanner that we threw in there
Oh,
earlier.
I think if Bayern was a viable option, that would be my pick.
Number
Hands.
one.
Like, there's no Aston Villa I want to hear. You know what I mean? There's no Aston Villa I want to hear. Oh, you'll be the
Bro,
Champions League of Napoli as well.
bro, hands down, I
Yeah,
would be
that'd
like
be fun.
Bayern to the world. Yeah, I'll be
Yeah,
like, let's go. Let's go. Anyway, man, it's incredible scenes, AD. It's been a blockbuster one, mate. I can't believe we've got here at this point. I'm actually surprised, you know, like as the ticker's going down below, I'm surprised Newcastle is 5th and behind Everton. I find that really weird to look at.
It's a bit harsh now, you know.
It looks weird.
Yeah, look bizarre. Look. Everton is a left field.
It's so left
Um,
field.
it's a left field punt anyway. Like just like objectively, Newcastle Grealish makes sense, right? Whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Everton is so rogue. I don't even know. I don't even know. Is it a typo or what?
I don't know, man. It's Fabrizio Romano, so listen, it holds a bit of weight, man. You know, when he says something, there's something to talk about. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, that is what our attempt of the teams that we think Jack Grealish would succeed most. What looks realistic? What looks like a viable option? Comment down in the comment section down below. Let us know your thoughts. Where you think Jack Grealish should go. Yeah, and it's going to be an interesting summer. So we're going to watch this space, and as soon as we find out who's going to be joining, we'll be back here extra time.
Guys,
to discuss all things.
Guys, please let me know because I'm racking my brain. I can't make heads or tails of it anymore. Because you know what? Sometimes you just need to stay silent. Because the more we've spoken about it, I've got more questions. I've got more questions than I did 2 hours ago.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
Bloody hell, mate.
Oh, bloody hell. Yeah, indeed. But I think we agree. We definitely want to see him move on from Man City, right? Because we just don't think it's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it'll be exciting and interesting wherever he goes. It'll be very interesting and exciting wherever he goes.
Absolutely.
Any more?
No, man, I think we're done, man. I think let's leave it to the people. Let the people decide.
People decide. We want to see your answers, man. We'll be back next time on Extra Time. Until then, we are out. Peace.
Peace.